to life. Out in the cold, crossing all the wires. Here comes the fire. It's out of control. Flames are getting higher. Here comes the fire. Let it fall apart. Baby, let it burn. Call me your love. I call you a liar. Here comes the fire.
All right, welcome to one of the digital learning team webinars. Today we're going to be talking all about differentiation and the station rotations in Seesaw. I'm really excited. Victoria, this is going to be perfect for you because as much as you want to ask questions, we don't have a ton of people in, so you can type them in the chat, or you can even, since it's just you, me, and Angie, you can unmute and ask questions. I am recording this just so you know for our Learning on Demand catalog, because then you can always go back and watch it later. And those people that weren't able to come today for whatever reason, they can always go back and watch it as well. I am going to go ahead and get started just talking about something that really inspired me to want to do this webinar today. I was speaking with a coworker whose daughter is in grades at Seesaw here in Garland, and she was talking to me the other day about how exciting it was to see their work throughout the day. So their child is going full-time in the classroom, but the teacher is still using Seesaw, and it was really exciting for them to go in on the family app and get to see all of that work. I had a similar situation happen when we were after the freeze and everything happened with the winter storms. My daughter's daycare was closed down, and she had to go to a different daycare that used this app. Throughout the day, they'd post pictures of what they were learning. Now, granted, she's in a very like they called it early preschool, but I got to see pictures of her making her caterpillar for Hungry Hungry Caterpillar, and just all those kind of things, the kind of joy it brought to my heart to know what they were learning. It was really powerful. So I'm hoping in a lot of what we look at today, it's things that I would want to know for my child as well, and scaffolding I would want to be able to be provided to any student. I'm going to go ahead and stop presenting so I can present this whole window so that I can move back and forth a little bit. If you haven't joined our webinar course before, all of the webinars that we've been hosting in our Learning on Demand, we're also housing in this Canvas course. So, Victoria, if you went through it today and you're like, I see some here that are also interesting, you could go and click on them, and then there's the recording in there. Sometimes there's resources, but the one for today is this differentiation and station rotations. All the links and all the resources we'll need are here, and then this recording we are currently making is going to go where this coming soon little label is. And then here is the slide deck for today. So if you wanted to follow along with that, it's here. I'll be posting all the links in the chat as well, but I just wanted to show you what that looks like. And then today, whenever we're done, you'll click next. And then this is the form that you can fill out for attendance. Victoria, since you're the only one here, you really don't have to fill out the form. I'll put it in for you. So you don't worry about going through. But if you were to do any other courses, they all look the same to that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start diving in. The first part of our work here today is going to be all focused in on accessibility and differentiation. So some different kinds of scaffolding that you can provide inside of Seesaw. And then how do we provide accessibility within our directions, within the things the students see even before they get to the activity and inside the activity itself. And then at the very end, we'll look at stations in Seesaw, and we'll go as deep as we can with the time that we've got. But we can always go back and look at it. So the very first thing I wanted to talk about are these little icons in the directions in Seesaw. I used to not know how to make these show up. I used to go and find an activity that would have the icon I wanted, and then I would copy their directions and put it into mine. Well, the nice thing is that Seesaw is now providing all of those icons, and they update it. So if they updated, when they added the voice recording or different links in there, they will add new icons and the shortcut. It looks weird when you write the directions because you'll have that colon and the word in between, but as soon as you click save, it shows. So especially with our littlest learners, and if they're learning at home, even in the classroom, if you're using it during the stations, you don't want them to have to come to you to ask a lot of questions about what to do. So those visual cues are huge. And in the directions, you can also put the voice recording or a video recording before they even open up the activity template. So that's one thing that if you're not adding those icons and you want to be able to add it your own in easily, I included a resource, and this is linked in that Canvas course as well. But this is where they will update. So you'll see that there's even a couple more on this one than there were on the last one, but they'll update the icons as they come in. So you can go ahead, you can click that, you can save it. I printed a really small one about the size of an index card, so I have to squint a little bit, but it would be normally be an 8.5 by 11, but a little index card, and then that's what I keep whenever I'm writing my Seesaw activities. Because it's short, it's simple, it's a really easy way to add just a little bit more accessibility for our students. Okay, these are the next 5 things that we're going to dive into for differentiation. We're going to talk about sentence stems, word banks, voice directions, which I am so over the moon. Teachers have been requesting this forever. The voice directions inside the activity to do the voice recording, how much easier it is than it used to be. You'd have to record the video, resize it, make it try to look like a voice recording, and now you can record the voice right there. Icons and emojis, and then video. Other than these, before we dive in, Victoria, I know you are using Seesaw all the time. Would you mind sharing in the chat if you have any other ideas that you find successful in your class to scaffold in Seesaw? And you can think about it. If I'm asking you at 4:06 on a Thursday and you're like, I don't have gas to think about that today, Chelsea, that's okay.
I was just going to say, I'm aware of all these new things. I have done the videos and the sentence stems I haven't done, so I'm excited to see that. And I just noticed, when I was telling you I printed it out. So my question was, and I'm not really answering yours, but my question was,
You're okay.
before we went to school, I always let the kids take their own pictures, but now that we're doing school, all that seems to be on there are the assigned activities. So I didn't know what we were allowed to do, and I don't think anybody else is sure either. If we're allowed to do those individual, I put a few on there, but I didn't know with the school what the rules, if we could, like when they make a triangle Play-Doh or they do something, I let the kids post that, but I didn't know what's allowed with the school.
I would say, Victoria, as long as you're not showing other students' faces, to the parents that are home, I would definitely show off, especially those physical models they're making, or if you're doing some kind of review, and they can actually add images as part of the activity. So in a template, they can add a picture to the activity as well. So if you had a space that said, add a picture of your Play-Doh triangle here, they can take a picture if they're using their iPad and put that picture right into the activity. So that might even be an option for you too. That's a great idea, Victoria, because we definitely want it to be blended. We want them to be able to do all that physical stuff that's in class, and like you said, be able to show that to their families at home. It's huge. It's huge. It's a great idea. I'm going to go ahead and start diving into a couple of these just so that you can see what they look like for the students. I know you mentioned the sentence stems right away. Even when I was teaching 7th grade, sentence stems were huge for our English language learners. And I had a lot of students in my class that had accommodations based on dyslexia as well. This is something that I would give them all the time, a sentence stem if I could. Now here, the student would either click the T to put their text on the line, almost like they're filling in the blank. Or if they're using the iPad and you want, they could be using a stylus to write it. Sometimes it gets a little messy to read, but it's also a little hard on the iPad sometimes to type. But if they're using a Chromebook, it's easy to type. And then at the very end, you can see on this activity, it says, use the microphone to record the poem. So they would fill in all of the sentence stems, and then at the very end, click the microphone. This is where they would also click that picture, Victoria. If, like, let's say they wrote it out or something like that, they could add the picture. And this activity doesn't have space on this page, but there could be a second page in the activity. So it could be as many or as few sentence stems as you'd like. And then here, if you had a student that maybe, has an accommodation where they get a lot of reading aloud, you could also add, now that we can add voice to any text, or they call it a label, okay, or a shape, you can click on that shape and then go to voice, and you can read it aloud. And it's right there. The audio stays right inside Seesaw there, so it's really easy. So you can see on this one, each line is being read aloud, each sentence stem, and then they'd fill it in. And then the directions also have their own little audio as well. I could see this being something that would help students with pronunciation, so that when they go to the poem, they hear it. And then they're also hearing that fluency that we have as teachers as well, before they're having to read it all over. So in this, that audio is also chunking. So you've got sentence stems, you've got audio, and you've got chunking all in one. Very, very deep, but easy scaffolding whenever it's here in Seesaw. This is one I had not thought to do, but I've seen in a lot of activities. I haven't done this myself, but a word bank at the bottom. So labels are draggable for students, right? We wouldn't lock them in place, but they could drag the words to the lines that make sense, fill in the rest that they want, or it could be that on this activity, they are specifically just dragging. Now, I'm going to show you when we get to the stations how you can assign activities to select students. So you could even have this be leveled out scaffolding wise. Maybe you have like 1, it's just the sentence stems, nothing else. 2, sentence stems and read aloud. 3, you could have sentence stems, the reading aloud, and the word bank. So you really could have as much there. And then this one's my favorite because I add emojis to everything. Oh, there's the voice to the label. I should have showed you that one too. That's what I was just talking about. But I add emojis to a lot of things. So I wanted to share with you an extension that I use all the time. I'm going to see if I can grab the link to it really quickly, because I did not. Oh, we're just going to go look for it. In the Chrome Web Store, there's an extension called Joy Pixels. And I did not add this to the resources, but I will as soon as we are done. So Joy Pixels is an extension that will bring up a little pop-up in your Chrome window of all of the emojis. And the reason I like this one is you can easily search by a tag. So if I wanted to search for, in this case, you see there's a wing. So I wanted to look for a bird. I can actually click on Joy Pixels and type in bird. And I know you can't see my little pop-up, but I want to show you. I'm just going to copy one of them to put into the chat. This bird happens to be half in its egg. So it's got a little egg there. And then I can actually copy and paste those whenever I'm typing inside of Seesaw. I can, we talked about the icons and the directions, but these icons can be pasted in when you're actually putting in your text. So again, for those littles, you could have the audio, you could have the icon, lightning, spring, sing, proud, proud. Oh, it's got a little thumbs up. That's nice. Or maybe that you could have like the clapping emoji there, or something that would help the kids make a connection. So when they're dragging. And then we also have another visual cue you can see on this page that wasn't on our other pages. The text is moved down on the directions, and there's an actual teacher video walkthrough. So if I record the video of that page and resize it down, then I could have a video, and in this case, modeling dragging my words up, and then I could model, reading the poem at the end, something like that. So those are just some really quick, oh, there's my little video mini lesson I was just talking about. I get ahead of myself. I know it's coming, and then I'm like, oh, this is our next thing. So there, you could record a little video mini lesson. It can be facing you, or you can be recording the screen and voicing over. You can be writing over it and then reset your page so it doesn't stick on the student exemplar. So that was a very quick walkthrough of some of the differentiation. Victoria, in the chat, will you let me know what your favorite one was that we looked at there? I'm going to go back so you can see. Which one do you see yourself using in your upcoming Seesaw activities? And you guys will have to forgive me. This whole weather change is doing something to my voice and my allergies. It's killing me. And Victoria, you are right. A lot of these scaffolding help the parents too, because if they're assisting the student in working at home, or if the parent is wondering what the student did or why they didn't get full credit or the feedback that's been given, it helps them to know. The sentence stems with joy pixels, those are my favorite. Those are definitely two very easy things to put in today. Okay, so now we're going to go to our stations, and this teacher link is in the course, but I'm going to paste it into our chat as well, so you can just click on it. So what I did is I went in and I created a generic stations template for you to be able to manipulate as much as you would like. And Victoria, you'll have to remind me, have you been able to come to our stations before? Yes, I thought so. So you're going to have to bear with me because for the recording, I'm going to walk through some of this again, and it's going to sound very similar. But anything that I say, if something new sticks out this time, feel free to stop me and ask questions. And it might just be good to see it a second time. So anytime we get one of those teacher links, it's kind of like what we see in our curriculum too. If they've shared a Seesaw activity, we're going to click Save Activity, and it's going to show up in our Seesaw activity library. Now, if I knew this activity was perfect, ready to go, I could just click Assign, choose my classes, and be done. But this is made for you to customize. So you're going to want to customize it before assigning to your students. So I'm going to click the three dots, and I'm going to click Copy and Edit Activity. That's what you guys will click. For me, I can just edit. But you'll click Copy and Edit Activity, which makes yourself a copy. Now, I had somebody say this the other day, and I thought this was a really good digital citizenship example. I am not saying this for credit to me, but there are so many free resources in Seesaw that we are able to edit freely. Like we're not going to Teachers Pay Teachers and buying things. It's all right there in Seesaw for you. So someone suggested in the teacher notes, whenever we make a copy that we want to edit, putting and giving credit so we remember ourselves who created this first. So I have used a lot of information from Chris Sanzer, who now works for Seesaw. And whenever I make a copy of his, I'll put his name down here from Chris Sanzer. And that also helps me because if I edit something beyond repair and I don't know how to get back to it, I can go and search for whoever created it the very first time. Some things that you could do to level up these directions is add voice instructions. I did not add any voice instructions here because I wanted you to be able to add your own. And then all of the teacher tips here, you would delete. So there's just some information on how to use this. And then you can see we talked about those icons earlier. There's add, which looks like a little plus sign. It's this little circle plus sign. And then the check mark is the check that they'll see whenever they go to submit their work. So you could have that. You could even put a little more emojis in here. That's what these stars are, is I use Joy Pixel to put the stars in. Anything that you believe would help prompt your students. In my directions, I like to have short and sweet. And then inside of the actual activity, I will add voice recording, video recording, and then support inside of there. Today, I'm going to be living in this template and showing you the template. A lot of these backgrounds were designed in Canva, and then I downloaded it as a PNG, so a picture, and then I uploaded the picture here. The picture can be locked. Oh, I'm going to undo that. The picture can be locked in place. So you can see here, I've already locked this picture in place. Kids can't drag the picture around. For me, this very first page would be your schedule and your groups. You don't really need the students to be doing that. Yay. Yes, there are some little cute ones, Victoria, already in there. It takes a lot of time to create some of these activities from scratch. So sometimes people will do what I did, which is include the link to where you can edit the stuff in Canva and then upload your own, and that really helps. Also, Canva, which is a free design website, you can get an upgrade for teachers, is now starting to have Seesaw specific designs. You can go and search Seesaw, and they already have a whole bunch of different backgrounds you can download and use here in your Seesaw activities. Makes it go a little bit faster because it is intimidating a couple of times when you add a new page and it's this. It's just blank. And you have to add each of the pieces. It is a little bit intimidating. So from this very first page, what I see you doing here is being able to put maybe times across the top or days. So maybe for reading, you have a smaller block of time for stations and maybe you only see like group A and B on Monday and then you see C and D on Tuesday, or vice versa. Maybe you see A and B and then you have specials and then you have C and D, but whatever that time would be, so that you can start having some of those heterogeneous groups where you have kids that are from home and kids that are in person getting to be together based on however you decide to group them. So you're not having to just have an at-home station or an at-home group and an in-person group. You can really start grouping by skill level, or maybe there's something you want to review with the students specifically. And you can see on page 3, I've already uploaded some different images for you to be able to copy and paste. Now, here's the thing. You have to use the shortcut in here because if I go to right click, this is what it brings up. You have to copy and paste. So I'm selecting the image and I'm using Command C because I'm on a Mac, but I think it is Control C if you're on a PC. And then I'm going to the page where I want it to show up. So in this case, I'm going to make group 1's schedule just so you can see what this looks like. And group 1 is going to do some independent reading with Mayan. Or maybe they're going to do some fluency. What I picture fluency being is an activity in this page where maybe they're reading a whole poem like we were just talking about, or maybe they're recording themselves doing their read aloud. So I'm not having to pull every single student at once, but they can still get that fluency in. And then I'm going to do teacher-led. And OCD me would normally probably go and change the color of one of those, so I didn't have 2 of like the beige next to each other, but I'm gonna pretend that didn't happen. I'm gonna pretend that it's a whole bunch of different colors altogether. Now, I'm not locking these images yet, so that means if a student got this template, what can they move? All of them. They can resize them, they can move them, they can drag them. Now, for me, I don't see this changing every week. I would probably have like one station schedule, and the only thing I'm really changing out is what the activities could be here. But you can see on slide 4, I already have a teacher-led slide going. So I'm going to go ahead and start by showing you how I would lock and link all of these. In Seesaw, if you have a multi-page activity, you can actually link from one page to another. So I'm going to link this teacher-led to my page 4, which is the teacher-led. So let's say I have some kind of activity going on there. That's what I have. And I don't want the kids to move this because even my 7th grade students would delete one of them and act like, well, miss, it was never there. And then I have to go through the actions of trying to get it to come back. I can't handle that. So I'm gonna lock it all. I don't need to just lock the size so they can redrag it other places. I'm gonna lock it all in place. I lock it after I put the link because in Seesaw, if I lock it first, I can't edit anything. I have to unlock it. So just a matter of process, I would link all of these first, and then I would go and lock them all in place. So I'm going to go ahead and I think I can do this. I was going to try and select multiple, but I cannot remember what I was going to do there. So I'm going to lock them all one by one. Like I said, this is something that you could do once, and then the next week you just duplicate. Like I did whenever I just opened this, I made a copy of the activity to edit. So I don't have to go and edit last week's. I can make a copy of this to edit. And then I'm going to actually go to page 4. And this is where I would have whatever my teacher-led activity is. It could be what we just saw earlier. I could still have sentence stems, and the students could still be writing the poem with me. We could be brainstorming on the whiteboard, and then they're plugging it in. It could be us breaking down a passage with review questions after. I could be working on sequencing, anything that I would use, like maybe on a worksheet or something that the students would be turning back into me for some kind of assessment. I can embed that actually here on this one slide. So maybe I do an actual worksheet with them, and then they take a picture and upload it to me. So I could have that here. And then I also grabbed this button. So I have the return home button that I grabbed from this page, and I put that on here, and I linked it to my very first page. So I'll show you. I linked it to page 1, and then I locked it so that my students, when they're actually working on this on their side, all they have to do is click and it takes them to page 1. So they're really just clicking the images and going back and forth. Now, I'm going to tell you, I made this look cute and pretty, but if it was students, I would choose icons that really trigger them to go wherever I need them to go. And if it was something like the small group and they're collaborating or whatever they need to do for collaboration, I would have all those scaffolds that we talked about earlier in this training embedded on that slide. It could even be, I can even link out to another Seesaw activity. So I'm going to unlock this one, and I'm going to, if I did a link, I can put in a website URL. So if there was some kind of activity that I just did not want to recreate in here, I could link to that activity. And then on that activity, I could link back to this activity. So I could have them moving back and forth just by clicking images. I want to take a second because we just have a little bit of time to show you what it looks like when we go to assigning. So we're going to pretend I have everything fixed on here. I've got all my groups in, I've got all the assignments, and I'm ready to assign. Now, this is where that differentiation comes back in. Luckily, in elementary school, most of you are just using one class with all of your students in that class. But we know within a class, there are going to be all kinds of different groups. Students that receive different accommodations, students that are going to be moving at different paces. If you were to assign this station to everybody and the chunking was getting crazy, you have kids working on the wrong station, they're doing teacher-led before they come to you, you can actually break it down and schedule it out. So I'm going to choose to use this demo class because I have 8 students in here. I can pick who gets this activity and on what day. So I could technically break my stations into 3 or 4 different activities and assign it to them to go out on the specific days. Takes a little bit more organization on the back end, but this is what you would do for those students with different accommodations as well. So if not all of my students need the word bank and the read aloud and the sentence stems, I could say, I know that Brian needs these accommodations. Let me assign this one. Excuse me. Let me assign this one to him, and then I can come back in and assign the other ones to all of the other students. Thank you, Angie. I always assign it to my sample student because on my end as the teacher, I use my sample student to put my exemplars. So, going into next year, Victoria, that's something that you can always come to an activity. And let's say you had just a phenomenal student product on something. Instead of you having to go and do the activity yourself, you could download their exemplar and then you can go and submit their exemplar as the sample student. Will make your life a lot easier. That is covered actually, I think, by Martine, who is currently doing our digital power down. She talks a little bit about that. So if I have my students, I can click that green check mark, and then I can also choose folders. So for me, starting out next year, this would be a goal that I would have if we're not already using folders, is to have like ELAR stations or math stations. Because on the student side, they are able to see those stations. I kind of want to show you what the folders look like before we wrap up. Let me go to my folders. And then on the student side, if I am getting into them, you can see all I'm seeing right now are activities that are assigned for this one choice board. So very quick information about our Seesaw activities. But if you have any questions at all, you can always email us at digitallearning at garlandisd.net, at digitallearning@garlandisd.net, with any questions. And we can always pop on and look at this together, schedule a time to walk through it together. But hopefully you were able to grab some little tips and tricks, Victoria, even though you had grabbed some of the stations work before. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but